principle. You know, you've heard me say many times in the past that health is multifaceted. As a matter of fact, the 8 laws of health are not unilateral. It's the integrated and comprehensive application of all of those laws of health. But let's talk a little bit about why temperance is so important for even all of the other laws of health to really be functional. And so let's start with understanding where it fits. Here are those 8 laws of health. Remember last week we spoke about the importance of water. But today we're going to talk about temperance. So what is the definition of temperance? According to Webster's dictionary, it's moderation in action, thought, or feeling. Moderation or abstinence from intoxicating drink. Now, there are some significant shortfalls in this definition. Moderation, really? You want moderation in smoking and gambling and alcohol and gluttony and foul language and cheating and coveting and disrespecting, stealing, lying, pornography, emotions? Really? Let's look at an original medicine definition, which is more biblically based, and it speaks more to why this is such an important aspect of health. So from an original medicine standpoint, temperance, true temperance teaches us to dispose entirely or to dispense entirely with everything that is hurtful and to use judiciously that which is helpful. So you can already start to see some of those things that I spoke about on the previous chart. You want to avoid them altogether. It's not just a little bit of lying that's good for you, not a moderate cheating, not moderate adultery. So let's kind of hone in on this temperance. And as I started to say earlier, it's the underlying principle for all the natural laws of health. Overeating. Of course, nutrition is important, but even though it's essential, if it's taken in excess, not only does it result in obesity, but a whole host of deficiencies and a whole host of health issues. Overwork. Work is good. Too much work is a problem. Overplaying. Playing is important. It adds to our health and our vitality, but we can overdo that. Exercise in moderation. Excessive exercise to the point of exhaustion can have a negative effect. Sunshine, even though it's a source of vitamin D, is very important for building up your bone density. Too much can cause cancer and a whole host of other skin and other health issues. Sleep. It's interesting. Rest is important. We spoke about that at one time, but too much sleep is detrimental to your health. And it was discovered by this person, E.C. Hammond, who did a study. He discovered that the lowest death rate was in those men averaging around 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night, and those who either skimped on sleep, so too little is clearly a problem, but too much can also cause a whole host of problems. And those people that slept usually 9 or more hours, they had a shorter lifespan. We talked about last week about overhydration and all of these health issues that result from too much of a very important health feature: headache, confusion, mood swings, fatigue, all kinds of respiratory issue, cold hands and feet, coma, death, just a whole host of issues. So you can see this is an underlying principle, all those laws of health, even godly trust, faith, where excess faith, when it turns into foolishness and presumption, is a problem. And we know from a biblical standpoint that faith without works is dead. So you just can't be over there just having all of this faith and not being a participant in a whole host and the other facets of health. And one of my favorite authors outside of the Bible, I like the way she put it. She says, some people are so heavenly minded, they are of no earthly good. So you can see it's a very important principle, and it kind of puts balance on all of those other laws of health. Now look at some of the other problems, the other side of the equation. This is an obvious one. Everybody knows that it's important to avoid alcohol. How about the INE cousins, the INE cousins, theobromine, caffeine, nicotine, cocaine. All of these are very known problems. We don't there are just myriads of studies that talk about the problems with these kinds of things that should be avoided completely if you want to have the highest level of health and vitality. So I remember in the old days, before I started really understanding and appreciating health, when I first started getting involved, one of the things, for example, is I read that every cigarette that you smoked caused you to deplete about 25 milligrams of vitamin C. So the fool that I said, okay, if I smoke 20 cigarettes, I needed 500 milligrams of vitamin C. You can see how foolish that is in trying to talk about how moderating smoking and some of these, cocaine, nicotine, these things are not adding to health and vitality. So we know that poisons we should avoid in all different weights and shapes. Here's one that I really wanted to specifically focus on, especially with the COVID, with the shutdowns and everything, this excess electronic and virtual reality excesses, too much TV, too much movieism, too much Zooming. We've become a bunch of zombies, too much use of the cell phones, too much internet games. And you can see even at a young age, the children are getting involved and they don't even communicate with each other. They're communicating with each other through the computer, through the cell phones. We're losing that very important part of social interaction. I just wanted to park on this a second because we don't realize the damage that's being done with a lot of these, the electromagnetic interference, the blue light interference, the effect on our eyes, our central nervous system, on our sleep, on all those other factors of health. And this is something that I know we have already focused on our challenges, but this is one of the things that we might want to just spend a little bit of time looking at the electronic interference that's going on in our home and our work environments that's having a significant impact on our health and vitality. And the one in particular is this virtual reality with all of these games and all of this technology that we have, spending a whole lot of time finding out what Professor Google has to say, Dr. Google, and a lot of those kinds of issues. So this is one of those specific things that we're probably not giving them enough attention to. This is something that we might want to inventory and just check ourselves to see if we're spending too much time with all of the electronics that we are involved with on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of us don't focus on the emotions. One of the best seeds for cancer is anger. So anger, fear, hate, there are just many studies, revenge, self-righteousness, all of these negative emotions have a very, very powerful impact on our health and vitality. And again, we don't want to look at it from the standpoint of moderating anger. You want to avoid it altogether. So anger, hate, this fear, all these things. One of the things that I noticed is, regardless of the facts, people are just getting overly emoted about a whole host of issues. And anger, hate, one of the best things that I've seen in explaining about how foolish it is to engage in these is one of the things that I read that said that anger is like swallowing poison and expecting the person that you're angry about to get sick. It doesn't affect them at all. They don't even know you hate them and have this revenge, etc. And another one of those, for example, self-righteousness. Look at the whole vaccine issue. Everybody's fighting with each other. Those that are vaccinated they have this side effect that I like to call self-righteousness. And so they're calling the people that are not vaccinated foolish. Those that are vaccinated calling the ones that are vaccinated foolish. Is going back and forth, and you're having all of this emotion and all of this entanglement going on in our mind that's having a major impact on a lot of people's health and vitality. So I just wanted to park on this a minute and have us kind of do a little bit of inventory of some of these emotions. And I know with a lot of my clients, I'm looking and, their diet looks good, they're getting sunlight, they're drinking enough water, and they got these emotions that they're not dealing with that's impacting their ability to get over some health issues that they're experiencing. And it's interesting that the last prayer that if you read John 17, it talks about the final prayer that he had for the disciples, his followers, is the sense of let's unify, let's love one another and not be arguing back and forth. And it's interesting as you're seeing with all of the chaos and confusion that's going on. There's just too much anger, there's too much self-righteousness, there's too much bitterness, there's just too much emoting that's leading to a whole host of issues. The suicide rate is higher, and even a whole host of health issues. And I would submit that the weakening of the immune system is having a bigger impact on people's susceptibility to COVID than all of these other things that people are worried about: the vaccine, the masking, the separation, etc. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to focus on that we might not be giving enough attention to as we focus on the importance of temperance. So what about all of these experts in the media, the journals, that smoking? Many of you might not realize that in the late 1800s, smoking was one of the things that was recommended for respiratory issues. And there's studies out there that talks about how alcohol, 1 drink a day for females, 2 drinks a day for men, adds to health and vitality. You know about the vaccines, all of these different things that the media and the medical experts are talking about that is supposed to be having a positive effect on health. Now, in the interest of time, I just want to just summarize what my view is on all of that controversy, on all of these experts. My sense is that there are no valid, peer-reviewed, biblically based studies that will ever show the superiority, show superior health benefits to the temperate practice of original medicine concepts and principles. It just doesn't exist. Now, we know that you can fool some of the people all of the time, all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And, there's just a whole host of biblical principles that talk about if you follow God's laws and decrees, you will suffer none of the diseases of the Egyptians. So my take on this is look at those studies, and to the extent that they support the original medicine concepts and principles, adhere to them, practice them. And if they don't, then don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, no matter how expert, how attractive the speaker sounds. And the Bible is very clear that many people, even the very elect, will be deceived if it were possible, as we come to experience end time events and as there's more and more confusion, etc. So the confusion is there. I think what's important, the thing that we need to start focusing on, each of us, is to becoming equipped and qualified with this most powerful system known to man for preventing and reversing all chronic degenerative diseases. And if you're doing that, if you're spending more time in understanding those principles and understanding the Bible, you don't have a whole lot of time for a lot of these electronic games, a lot of TV-ism, and a lot of movies, even a lot of Zooming. And so the more time you're spending in equipping and qualifying yourself with original medicine, with biblical principles, the less time you have to be distracted by all of these other things that impact your health and vitality. And so on the other hand, the more you're spending time doing those things, the less time you have becoming equipped and qualified on this most powerful system known to man and on the Bible and what it has to tell us. So temperance means, therefore, abstinence for things that are bad for us and moderation in things that are good. That's the bottom line. And the fruit of the Spirit is, I looked up, I have a Bible search, and I looked up the word, I put in temperance. It's not mentioned once in the Bible, except one time. This is the only one I found. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, which is temperance. So that's the one time. It is the fruit of the Spirit. All of those other things. And one of the things that we need to remember is that we are the children of royalty. We're not serfs of the adversary. We need to be focusing on all of the fruits of the Spirit. And I want to underline temperance with regard to the original medicine principles that we're talking about now. And you want to avoid all of those other facets, all of the dietary, the lifestyle, the distractions, all of those things that are making us less than what our royal heritage calls us for, the purpose that we're designed for. And so with that, I'd like to summarize, to say, whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. So I hope we were able to kind of put the spotlight a little bit on this importance of temperance. And let me stop share now to see if I can answer any of the questions that you might have on some of these charts that admittedly I went through rather quickly, or any other topics that you have with regard to original medicine.